So we know, and as I've reported before, over essentially since the Tories came to power in the coalition government, they have essentially opted to do the politics of austerity. And in terms of this, they have left local authorities to essentially bear the brunt of all these cuts. And this has caused huge deprivation to areas that were already very incredibly deprived. The last thing they needed was more deprivation to add to their woes. My area is just one of those areas, like I've said constantly on this channel before. Barnsley still is suffering from the effects of the miners' strike. It is still suffering the effects of the 2008 financial crash. It is still probably going to be suffering the effects of not only the end of Brexit, but also the coronavirus recession as well. Because why do I say Brexit? Well, because we used to get a lot of money from the EU to help improve this area. In fact, one such thing, and I've mentioned this before, was a programme specifically set up and designed by the councils to help people set up their own business, to provide them with business support, advice, even some areas provide them with loans that they could use to buy equipment to, get their business up and running. That project is now in danger because that project potentially doesn't have much money. It only has at the moment the council's blessing to continue. It doesn't get any more EU funding. But we are now faced with ever more, councils now having been told, okay, you have to cut X amount from your budget. And at the end of the day, there's not a lot the councils can really do about it. There's very often been this thing of, the council should just refuse it. But if a council does just refuse, to cut that much money from the budget, the central government, being the Tories in this case, are still going to cut their budget. So there's not a lot the councils can actually do to fight back against austerity other than to actually do cuts. And as you've seen, as I'm sure other people will know from their local pages, whenever you see talks about councils doing this or councils doing that, there is a massive sense of outpouring, especially in my own. In fact, I even saw this happen very recently when I commented on just this such thing, with Rishi Sunak's new budget essentially giving money to areas that don't really need the money. And we're going to get into that later in the article because this is just typical, Tory modus operandi. These areas that were promised to, quote, be levelled up aren't being levelled up at all. So, anyway, with that, before we jump in, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below, there's a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And as always, thank you very much to those people who do support me that way. So, on with this. So, this comes from the Yorkshire Bylines. And the title is, I love it, proper Yorkshire. Summits up with Sunak, as levelling up money funnelled to Tory seats. Whatever qualities we might have wanted from our man in charge of the nation's money, surely financial literacy should be essential. Yet, the Chancellor's ability to understand economics and read a simple spreadsheet has been brought into serious question. This follows his announcement on Wednesday that the rich and lefty Richmondshire in North Yorkshire is a more deserving case for levelling up money than Barnsley or Sheffield. And really, suddenly, there's one sense of what levelling up means has been completely redefined. And according to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, in his very first speech as Prime Minister, Boris Johnson made clear his intent to boost economic performance outside of London and the South East, to, quote, level up the country and reverse the fortunes of the UK's left behind towns and cities. But any casual observer of the government's actions would recognise that these are completely hollow words. Actions would recognise. They are merely designed to appease those who highlighted the increasing levels of deprivation and growing inequalities documented since the Conservatives took office way back in 2010. Alex Toll wrote at the end of last year, "As we have seen with the Towns Fund and the various COVID-related procurement scandals, the Conservatives are not above using public money for personal or political gain. In other words, trying to understand the actions of this government through any other prism other than self-gain is just a complete waste of time." In one sense, then, the astonishment from Dan Jarvis, the MP for Barnsley and the city region mayor, following Sunak's announcement, saying in a tweet that it beggars belief that Sunak's Richmond's constituency is prioritised for levelling up ahead of Barnsley and Sheffield. The letter he penned yesterday to the Chancellor wasted no time in getting to the heart of this. The government has talked about supporting the areas most affected by COVID and those in greatest economic distress. Yet, the Levelling Up Fund places your own constituency, Richmondshire, ranked 251 in the England's Deprivation Index, in a higher category than Barnsley, ranked 38th, Salford 20th, Halton 39th, and Sheffield 93rd. Richmond has had only 141 COVID deaths per 100,000 people. Barnsley has had 311, Salford 214, Halton 200, and Sheffield 188. The boy has definitely done his homework. But the most recent government statistics on deprivation are to be found in the 2019 English Insights of Deprivation. The Index of Multiple Deprivation, or the IMD, is the official measure of relative deprivation in England. For a start, this shows that 80% of neighbourhoods that were in the most deprived decile in 2019 were also listed as the most deprived in 2015. In other words, if you think that this is a government that's got a handle on addressing inequalities, then think again, because the Conservatives haven't managed to shift the dial one bit in the last 5 years. Middlesbrough, Liverpool, Knowingsley, Kingston on Hull and Manchester are the local authorities with the highest proportions of neighbourhoods among the most deprived in England, largely unchanged since the 2015 report. And worse still, those are 5 neighbourhoods that have also been ranked among the most deprived in each IMD update since 2004. 2 in Liverpool and 1 in Wirral and 1 in Rochdale and 1 in Middlesbrough. Little wonder that nothing has shifted for one of our most deprived communities if this government thinks that Richmondshire is in need of help. The summary of the 2019 findings examines the levels of deprivation in detail and shows exactly where they're found. Unsurprisingly, not one is Richmondshire actually mentioned. But then I found it on page 12, table 2, and on a map showing that these local authorities, by the populations of neighbourhoods that they have in the lowest decile nationally for deprivation. Richmondshire shines bright as white as an authority with the least number of deprived neighbourhoods, and Sheffield manages a mention in table 4. The charts of the local authorities' districts to the proportion of neighbourhoods that were in the most deprived decile. But the Sheffield constituencies are all Labour held, whereas Richmondshire is a Conservative held constituency, and the MP of this affluent area that suffers relatively low deprivation is, of course, Rishi Sunak. Coincidence? I think not. So, if deprivation isn't a factor, then what on exactly are the criteria for getting public money to level up, other than being a Conservative constituency? as Dan Jarvis also said in his letter. He said, "Your department has yet to release the full basis of these allocations, contrary to your statement yesterday. But whatever the exact formula, the reality is that you have allocated support in a way that favours places that are affluent over those that are deprived, places that are resilient over those that are vulnerable, places that have suffered less from COVID over those that have suffered more. It is truly nonsensical. A cursory glance at the full list of local authorities to get category 1 status, that the Richmondshire example is one of many. It reveals the extent of the pork barrel politics going on, a wonderfully descriptive term that refers to the spending when it is intended to benefit constituencies of a politician in return for their political support. So, for example, how can the Derbyshire Dales be deemed to be more in need than Sheffield, and on what basis? File 10 of the 2019 National Statistics English Incidents of Deprivation 2019 clearly shows the rankings. Local authorities are ranked from 1, the most deprived, to 317th, the least deprived, and the Derbyshire Dales come in at 265, and Richmond at 251. Sheffield is at 93, Barnsley at 38. Take a look for yourself. Go along the tables at the bottom. Health sees Derbyshire at 231, Barnsley at 19, and on employment, Richmondshire comes at 290, where Barnsley comes on 21. We could go on, but I'm sure you'll get the picture. Economically illiterate and just dishonest to boot. It's not just a coincidence that the Chancellor that's complicit in this. It's the whole cabinet. And those who think that the answer to levelling up is more of the same that we've got since 2010, good luck to those Tory MPs in seats like Bolsover and Don Valley, who find that Richmondshire is in more of need of them. Go explain that next time you're on the doorstep. With any luck, you should be shown the door. And we can only hope that is the place, because as we've said long time ago, ever since Boris trotted out this idea of, quote, levelling up, I've said it very well. I will wait until he actually does it. And now we've actually seen what this, quote, levelling up means. It's nothing. It's just complete hollow words. Once again, the areas that are going to get all that money don't need it. You know, look at how high Barnsley, my own constituency, my own place has come in some of those numbers. It's absolutely shocking, and yet we're not getting anything. So much for levelling up then. So, as always, thank you, for your support. Please do remember to hit that like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below, there's a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And thank you very much to those people who do support me that way. And as always, we'll see you all next time.